And welcome back to another episode of Air Tycoon Online. It's now 1979.4, and as you can see, we're making a decent profit for a downtick, about 500,000. I reckon the next downtick will probably decrease another 30 or 40,000, which means our downticks are now about 450k to or 400 to 500k in that range, which is a very kind of healthy range. Also, if you guys can see, we have plus 777,000. Yep, overnight our staff became unsatisfied again. Luckily, I forgot to close my blinds, so I actually woke up at like 6 a.m. and only lost 2 turns or so of profit, which is, well, bad, but better than it could have been, right? And this seems to happen every time you level up the next night or something like that, then it seems to happen. I really don't know what the reason is. Sometimes it's every 2 days, it's every 3 days, and I don't know when to just like increase my staff. Probably every night I probably should, just to mitigate the risk of yeah, that happening again. Also, on another note, guys, you might notice my credit count has decreased probably about 25 since last episode. And the main reason for this is I now own about 12 maintenance depots. I think I own exactly 12 maintenance depots. So I did a little bit of calculation and found that you could buy 15 maintenance depots with the default amount of credits the game gives you just for playing. So would you like to see me stay below 15 maintenance depots or just continue to build maintenance depots in my main hubs? Please let me know down in the comments below um, how you feel about that. Anyhow, yeah, as you can see, the maintenance depots are making a pretty big difference. Without them, my profit margin would be a little bit lower. Um, I do recommend, even if you're a free-to-play player, completely, in your biggest possible base, with the most slot usage, you do buy a maintenance depot, as it does make a pretty decent difference. Anyhow, even if you don't have them, you should still be able to make a good profit. You minus 137,000 from this. Wow, we're still 400 something thousand in the green on a pretty bad downtick. Anyhow, with that in mind, if we take a look at the reason why our downticks are now better, and the main reason is just because the World Traveler Index, after the economic crisis, just kept climbing. It kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and even it decreases a bit now by like 100 points or so. It is still now at a very healthy um, kind of level where we are able to make tons and tons of good stopover routes. For example, we are now able to make routes like this, and as you can see, while they aren't completely full, they are doing quite well. Yeah, like not a perfect stopover route, but 4K for a city like Moscow to Louisville and Fukuoka on a downtake is not bad at all. Yeah, keep in mind this is a downtick, and on the uptakes they would be probably completely full if I were to guess. Also, these are yet to be properly priced, right? And I haven't made any routes today, so I think now is a good time to do price adjustments. So here's what I like to do. This is a pretty bad downtick. So we're going to say if the load factor is between 0 and 80, we want to lower the price. So make sure you do based on default fare. The other setting is not very good. So we want to do something like this, and then we want to do this for all the classes. And we do want to do the classes individually because load factors can be very misleading. For example, 97% load factor looks very good, except what if that 97% load factor is based upon the economy class is full, the business class is full, but it's just the first class which is empty, right? That would probably be like 97% load factor, but you would not be very happy with a very, very empty first class as such. So, um, anyhow, let's continue to do some price adjustments. I think I want to go as low as 1.15 fare. Any lower, and I really kind of don't see the point. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let's take a look at my load factors to see what some of the worst load factors here are. Um, Here's a route which fell off a cliff. I'm reckoning it's because Chicago ran out of yeah, office space and that kind of stuff, so the staff were very unhappy. Yeah, normally when you have very unprofitable routes, that's usually a potential cause. Um, yeah, here's a route which isn't doing so. Oh, well, that was a low satisfaction route as we looked at before. Amsterdam to Shenzhen. Yeah, it looks like our prices decreased a little bit here, which should help with the load factors as, yeah, it was doing pretty badly before. Um, yeah, let's see some other. London to Mumbai is not a route which is doing very well. Let's see why that is, and there's just a lot of competitors. Um, yeah, anyhow, I'm kind of curious to see how different like tier routes are doing. Like I opened a bunch of these 747 routes yesterday where I wasn't too sure how they would do. And it does look like this is quite interesting. The difference between Amsterdam and Moscow is quite significant. Amsterdam is 650. Moscow is maybe 635, something like that. And I can actually see the difference in the performance of the routes, just a tiny bit of World Traveler Index. Um, Also, Amsterdam's a little bit different, where it's closer to North America, right? So the North American routes are a little bit worse. Louisville, for example, here is 350 business and tour. Fukuoka, on the other hand, or most of the Asian routes are close to 400. Fukuoka is only also 350, but most of these are around 400, right? So when we do stopover routes, the Asian side should be longer because the longer the route, the less demand. Anyhow, that being said, it is time to, of course, order more planes. We really do have a lot of planes now. If we take a look at our leaderboard position, we have 779 planes, 1,034 routes. um, right, so we can see we're one of the only players abusing stopovers heavily. JK Sikistan is also abusing stopovers, and he is going to overtake second very soon. I should have turned my notifications off. I'm very curious to see how he's doing. So I'm currently spying on the number one player, spending some credits to do so, and I actually have basically the same profit as he does. Right. So if everything continues as is, the World Traveler Index stays up. I remember to increase my staffing price overnight. Don't do any of these stupid mess ups where I end up with negative profit. As you can see, we rarely have a string of no fuck ups. Um, it's usually it was the World Traveler Index before, or it was a fuel spike then. There's a lot of things which can go wrong, right? But when everything is going right, our airline is very, very profitable still. Yeah, that being said, I'm kind of curious how this guy is going because I feel like he's going to overtake second, and he is one of the only stopover abusers. So I would reckon that he's actually doing, yeah, he's doing better than the number one place player. So this is going to be our main competitor. 750K is really, really strong. Like I saw him kind of shooting up the leaderboard. And let's see why. He has a lot of 747s. They're doing very well in terms of profit. I'm quite sure he owns his 747s, unlike mine. So that's a difference right there, first of all. Um, yeah, if we look down the list, he's also just using some stopovers where necessary, right? Which kind of shows that this will be our main competitor. Um, yeah, just a lot of great stopover. Istanbul to Atlanta. Interesting. This is like kind of new. So like I'm just kind of like interested in where he's opening up bases because I was considering Istanbul, um, or Atlanta. So, yeah, that was a bit of an interesting thing. This guy's relatively difficult to compete with because he runs very high name value, at least in the routes that I was competing with him. And very high name value is very important for high load factors and like winning in competition. So I don't really want to compete with him. And yeah, he has a lot of competition routes. Oh, that's because I'm looking at competition routes only. Okay, let's look at some of his monopoly routes. Uh, just running a lot of 747 200s. And yeah, they're doing very, very well, as we can see here. Just basically near monopoly on the high range routes, right? I can't really compete with this yet. I don't have enough cash to purchase the high range planes um, in an efficient manner yet. I do think I will switch to this soon. Um, I don't want to leave this one guy with all the monopoly on the long range routes. But it seems like he's already got like just a good chunk of all of them in a sense, you know what I mean? Like, geez, he has so many um, good. I reckon these are all him. Oh no, this is Jude now Air. Okay, interesting. I reckon a lot of these, um, like super long range 747 200 routes, like they're so good. Yeah, he is like on a decent number of them. Um, Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate we can't compete with these right now, right? But in the future, what I can do is I can just compete with these by making these one half of a stopover, uh, right? With a smaller plane too, and just make sure that they're not monopolies. I don't really want to like fully compete with him because I will lose. Just like looking at his like name value 73. Oh, this is not him. Right, 80. It'll take me a while to catch up with those without investing heavily. Like yeah, his name value in Tokyo is nearly 80, for example, right? So that's all really good stuff. Yeah, this looks like our main competitor now. Now he is going to be the number one spot very soon, looking at these profits. And another thing I noticed is how high his margin is: 2.5 billion to 1.7 billion expenses. Let's take a look at mine. Um, I'm gonna have much lower margin and way higher. Yeah, 4.9 to 4.4. This is why we're so vulnerable to little changes in the World Traveler Index. Um, Kind of at least below where we set up our company for, right? Um, and like fuel spikes and such, because when the fuel spikes just a little bit, we lose profitability entirely, right? Because just the fuel expense is bigger than our total net profit, right? And that's just a result of like look at the lease expense, right? If these were owned 747s, this would probably be um, close to half a billion in depreciation, right? But depreciation actually goes in is basically cash, right? Because it shows up on the balance sheet as a negative, but it doesn't take away money from you, right? So you end up with a ton of actual cash when you have high depreciation instead of high lease costs. Um, which is something preferable, right? But also, how would we be flying this many 747s this quickly um, without a little bit of funny business strategies, right? So, back to Tupolev's, back to Boeing's. I think I'm just gonna do this until we literally like run out of 747 routes almost entirely. Um, I don't see any reason why we should stop, as the World Traveler Index is now good enough so that there's a lot more 747 routes that are, I guess, quote unquote, viable to make and just like decent routes. I reckon Frankfurt is now big enough to drive um, routes with 300 business and tour. Let's take a look at any cities we have which are close to 300 business and tour to Frankfurt. Yeah, as we can see, besides the turns where we forgot to make our staff happy with enough money, these are now full routes. Um, and this is a pretty big change because there are a ton and a ton of cities with around 300 business and tour, which are, we can be like ready to connect to Frankfurt. And let's just see what some of the options on the other side are. Uh, we got things like Okinawa, Harbin. Let's take a look at like routes like this. Yeah, they're just doing very well. Uh, So I think that should be kind of our expansion focus today is routes to Frankfurt, uh, routes to Amsterdam, routes to Moscow. Moscow is a little bit small still, so we have to be a little bit careful when making routes to Moscow. But yeah, anyhow, when we can take advantage of routes which nobody else is making, um, nobody else is using most of the cities with 300 in business and tour, for example, right? It really lets us kind of excel in a way which other companies can't replicate because they rely on the big marquee routes which everyone has kind of heard of. Um, and since we do not, well, we can go ahead and like keep expanding when hopefully other people are running into a little bit of a roadblock. Now, all that being said, I'm not 100% sure, right, um, if everybody making routes will slow down or they will learn to compete with me and just open up stopovers that are like overlapping mine or that kind of thing. I have no clue really if people will be able to catch on to that or if people will have their own strategies for when there's less and less available monopoly routes. Will they just stack on the popular routes, right? Or will they try and find something more creative? I am not really sure. It does look like though we have a couple like good competitors, right? We have that third place guy. The second place guy I think is basically dead in the water in the sense that he did not invest enough early and now cannot grow. Um, well, they can grow, but they probably won't because they're just like facing too much of an uphill battle. They have too low image, too low service investment level, all that kind of thing. And they're flying two old planes, and as their planes age, he can't really replace them. Like, he's only increased 4 billion in value in like half a decade. Um, so I haven't spied on him and like spent two credits to look at his routes, and his profit, but I'm almost certain that it's not good. Um, so yeah, anyhow, uh, that guy is unfortunately just kind of doomed himself, which is okay. We can't have too many competitors, right? That would be a little bit scary. Um, anyhow, yeah, now that we don't have really have to deal with him, I have absolutely zero doubt in my mind that we will overtake that guy at least. Um, but yeah, some of the other players will be a challenge for sure to overtake, especially that number three guy. Holy smokes, 700,000 on a turn. Like this, that means his uptakes are probably pushing like a billion, which is definitely better than what I can do right now. So hopefully, all we really need to do is just focus on our own growth, right? And hopefully, we will catch up eventually, at least, or at least get close. Um, Gotta remember, this is my first year. We lost probably about 3 years or 4 years of progress to really silly things. We lost 2 years to the World Traveler Index. Um, and then, very funnily, we lost probably about 1.5 years of progress just every single time our staff became unhappy from having not enough, just like not paying them enough, right? And well, it was very preventable in the sense that I could have just every night just increased the staff pay. Uh, it does hurt a little bit in terms of being more expensive than what we would have been able to make otherwise. Uh, but losing all your profit for 3 or 4 turns overnight is just worse, right? So um, we probably should have done that, but oh well, it's a bit too late for that now. We can focus on continuing to open new and very profitable routes. Um, yeah, and as we can see, there's just a lot of options still. They are a little bit difficult to find as they're kind of in a sea of bad options. And then we have to find that like one little city there, which we haven't taken yet. Um, so it is just a little bit challenging in that sense, but it's not too bad. Um, and we can continue to open routes at a decent pace. Why is Rome so small? Only 700 business and tour. Um, how is it doing to routes like this? That's kind of locked on full. Let's kind of see on the other side routes like Cancun, which are very close to full on a point 0.4 tick now, which means I can continue to open more routes. Let's see like Indianapolis, which is a good route. Yeah, these are locked on full. Uh, yeah, which actually means we can open more routes, stop over to Rome too with 747s. Yeah, thankfully the World Traveler Index, excuse me, has gone up a little bit, right? So we can start to open more of these routes. Because those European hubs, like during and before the World Traveler Index kind of had this recent growth, were looking very rough. Um, like without the ability to open almost any 747 routes to them, basically meant they felt nearly useless. Um, right, as 747s are the only thing in this company which make money. Um, and everything else like isn't there for decoration, but is just there to allow us to lease more 747s, right? I wonder if like I only bought Tupolevs, how much money I could make. It just wouldn't be very much, right? Like each one makes almost no money, at almost no margin. So yeah, that would be a very interesting and kind of rough situation probably. Anyhow, let's just continue to look for little routes we may have forgotten about. Islamabad is very small in this world. I haven't been focusing too much on the Middle East, but the Middle East just isn't looking very good. I wonder if Abu Dhabi ever gets a little bit of growth, because as of right now, um, that's a 707. Oh, okay. Because as of right now, Abu Dhabi has kind of been done dirty. I can't believe how low the business and tour to Abu Dhabi is. Feels just a little bit unrealistic, but I guess that's fine. Maybe in 1979 Abu Dhabi really was just nowhere. I don't really know. Um, the game does seem to have realistic kind of growth timers, and I think we don't have any more good routes to Frankfurt, so it's time to focus on Rome. Um, like for example, it kind of knows when Miami and Orlando grew as destinations. It kind of knows when certain airports open, right? So maybe that's just like part of the realism. And everything is kind of intended to be like that, which is kind of cool if it is. Wow, even Cleveland is a decent sized city here. So we can go ahead and open that and just open more Tupolev 134 routes as well. Um, Once again, I don't think I need to do the Tupolev 134 routes on camera. I think I've done it enough times. You guys kind of know the drill. It is extremely tedious at this point, um, which is kind of why I'm on my last legs of Tupolev, and I kind of want to switch towards like owning planes very soon. I don't know which planes to buy though, right? I guess I got to kind of examine the routes I want to open, right? Like, and just kind of see what planes I need for that. I guess like um, routes like this are ones I could consider. You know what I mean? I don't know how I'd stop over these. Like maybe something like this, and then like a stopover to Charlotte or something. So it's basically direct, but with like a tiny little stopover. I think that would be the way to do um, routes like this and attempt to keep them on 5 schedules per week. Would kind of be the name of the game there. I guess like we would be buying 747 SPs or 200s. Those are ruinously expensive, which is kind of the downside. And like I think like a lot of these are starting to populate. Yeah, 747 100. I didn't know it could. Oh, that's not even too far. I'm kind of trying to look at routes which are over 10,000 kilometers to kind of see what people are using on them. Yeah, what are people using on these 747 200s, that kind of thing? Okay. Let's see. LA. LA was our hub. We were expanding a lot yesterday, and LA actually doesn't even have too much competition. Let's see, like who's flying LA to Guangzhou? Is it the player based in LA or is it somebody else? I have no idea where these airlines are based actually, but uh, yeah, like I guess 747 200s are starting to come out and just fly very globally. Um, yeah, this is always the kind of the stage of the game where it feels the worst to be a Tupolev Boeing leaser, um, as you just can't compete with the longer range routes. You just have to let players kind of cook on their own, and then you can only go compete with them later on. You can't occupy any like new cool routes or anything like that. Um, it's just 747 after 747 100, and you can't like range extend these even, so you can't even like cheat it. You just have to yeah, you just have to go like route by route and just kind of make it work. And I kind of like that. Um, yeah, I definitely think that spending your credits to actually or not your credits. Oh yeah, I mean yeah, your credits. At least in Air Tycoon, what's it called? Air Tycoon Offline. Yeah, that in that game, I think it's incredibly worth it to actually spend your credits or your not your credits in that game. It's just your cash, your extra cash, right? To range extend the planes and that kind of thing, to kind of open routes you otherwise wouldn't be able to. In this game, however, um, people will just compete with you when the new route becomes available anyway. And once again, there's more demand, at least when the World Traveler Index is at least somewhat normal. There's more demand than you can take, right? So the game is not really about maximizing the amount you can make from a good route. The more accurate thing is just how many planes can you get, and you just put those planes on appropriate routes and make even more money just by flying planes which are almost full most of the time. Right now, the Boeing Tupolev strategy does deviate from that a little bit, but it's just such an obscure and powerful strategy that's just like it's born out of a strange caveat on the game where you're forced to only be able to lease 30% of your fleet. A very like odd restriction in my opinion, because it encourages strange gameplay like what I'm doing, like buying Tupolevs just to lease Boeings. Um, like you'd never see a real life company doing anything similar, right? Because if you wanted to lease 747s, you would just lease 747s and nobody would bat an eye. You know what I mean? Like it would be very, very straightforward. But instead of that, we have this really strange system where we try and just lease as many planes as possible by buying the cheapest planes possible. And yeah, if it works, right? So why try and fix it? And this is not going to be a good route. It's not going to be full, but we're going to open it anyway because I'm too lazy to find a different one. So let's do a little bit of Chicago. How are the Chicago routes doing? These ones I don't think have had a chance to accelerate fully yet because there's no way Chicago to Vienna is that unpopular. So I'm gonna like take that and just continue to expand out of Chicago because I know Chicago is better than what is being seen there, and we can open routes. Oh, somebody has taken all of the little cities in Mexico. Oh, that's somewhat disappointing. I usually love to take routes in that area of the world in order to make stopovers, but instead we can use routes like this. Um, oh, that's a six scheduler. That's pretty good. Um, and this basically just focuses all the demand on the long haul leg of the route, or the longer haul, I think we should be saying here. And that's fine. Um, yeah, like routes like Tripoli would be great. Like it would be able to support enough so that this tiny little second half of the route won't lose too much load factors. Um, so that is fine indeed. Let's just go ahead and look for more kind of underrated cities or just not utilized in this case. Like, let's see if Lisbon can make it to Beijing. It can. Okay, then we can do something like this. I didn't realize it could. That's pretty nice. Yeah, just continue to look for more routes which might be overlooked. Toulouse has even taken well, so that people have taken routes down to a decent level, um, and haven't left too many very obvious airports. That being said, there's Birmingham and Glasgow. These do have a problem where the other stopovers are a bit suspicious in the sense that uh, they're not very good. This is 5 schedules per week. If I do Trujillo, I might be able to get 5 schedules per week still, and the route's a little longer. So let's go ahead and do that. Just a little bit better. These differences do add up when you consider them throughout an entire playthrough. Once again, if you're not exactly 100% sure why I'm trying to make the longest stopover possible for each schedule is simply because you don't want to be near a breakpoint where you lose a schedule per week. It means it's the difference between why some stopover pairs, like London to Kagoshima, um, can make what is this, 6K? Let me sort this by plane actually. That might be a little bit easier. Okay, no, that is not easier, but that's basically why there is a difference at all in the profitability, like why some planes will make over 10K, where some planes will barely make 6 or 7K, like this one. Uh, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, even at the same price, planes will make a drastically different amount based on those range breakpoints. So yeah, always be careful about that. Anyways, I'm gonna go make these two live routes off camera. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.